Yes, or hello. Today's video is all about Greek food and we are in the center of Athens. This is Hadrian's Arch behind me, an archaeological dig to my back, and we are gonna get stuck in straight away. We're gonna go get some breakfast and I'll tell you all about the traditional pastries that the Greeks love. There are two important things you should know about Greek pastries. Number one, they are made with phyllo dough. Number two, after spending 2 weeks in the country, I no longer fit into my stretchy pants. Probably the most famous Greek pastry out there is the Spanakopita, which is phyllo pastry stuffed full of spinach. Sometimes there's feta cheese inside or leeks, especially in the rural parts of Greece. But there's one more pastry that I want to introduce you to because I only got to learn about it on this trip. And I should mention, I am not Greek, but this is probably my 10th trip to Greece. I used to come here a lot as a child growing up, and I fell in love with it so much that even as an adult, I just can't keep away. And on this particular trip, as I mentioned, I am here for 2 weeks. So a lot of time for research, and the pastry that I got to know is called Bougatsa, and it comes from the north of Greece. It specifically comes from an area called Macedonia, not to be confused with nearby North Macedonia, which is a country, and only recently changed its name after many years of kind of arguing about who got to call themselves what. Anyway, in this Greek Macedonia, you will find a town called Ceres. In the 20th century, during the Ottoman Empire, many Greek origin refugees came back to their native country, and as they did that, they brought with them the Bougatsa. We're gonna move on, but I just want to show you where I have been recording. Athens. There's literally history every step of the way, and it's an absolutely unbelievable city. The final type of pastry I want to introduce you to is called Koulouri. It's these sesame crusted circles of dough that are sold by street vendors all over big cities. You will find them in bakeries. Basically, you can't miss them. And if they seem familiar and you have ever visited Turkey, you might know them by another name, and that name is simit. That's because Koulouri / simit are another Ottoman dish. Now, before we turn our thoughts to some proper Greek dishes, let's talk about a really popular topic in this country, which is coffee. There are 3 specific types of Greek coffee I want to introduce you to, and by the way, I also wanted to mention that that is the Acropolis Museum behind me, which contains some of the most precious and valuable artifacts of this country. Because Greece is a pretty hot country, you probably won't be surprised to hear that all 3 of these coffee types are iced coffee. The first is called frappe, and it was only invented fairly recently in 1957 during an international trade conference in the northern town of Thessaloniki. But now it is so popular that you will struggle to find a place that doesn't have frappe on its menu. To prepare a tall glass of frappe, all you need is instant coffee, water, ice cubes, and sugar. Then you just pop them in a shaker and blend furiously until you get a foam-covered iced coffee drink. But obviously not everyone likes instant coffee, and this is where the other 2 types come in. Number 1 is cappuccino freddo, which is an iced cappuccino, and number 2 is an iced espresso or espresso freddo. Now, if you want to be cool and try to order in Greek, here's how you can do it. Say the name of your coffee, for example, cappuccino freddo, parakalo. Parakalo means please, you're just being polite. After this, you will most likely be asked about your sugar levels, saccharine, to which you have 3 potential answers. Number 1, if you're a bit hardcore and you want your coffee plain and unsweetened, you say schietto, okay, schietto. Number 2, you're just a regular person, you're a normal person and you want medium sugar, you say metrio. Number 3, third option is you are me and you are probably a psychopath and you want your coffee unbelievably sweet. That is when you say this word, gliko, which means sweet / I'm a psychopath / deport me now. It doesn't mean the latter too though. Okay, let's keep on walking. Now that is coffee down, and we are gonna move on to proper Greek food, starting with the Greek salad. A Greek salad is genuinely very Greek, by which I mean that you will find it all over the country. You will find it under a different name on Greek menus, which is choriatiki, but if you say Greek salad, virtually everyone will understand you, which is one point that I should raise. I know I just told you how to order coffee in Greek, but you don't really need these skills. Everyone that is in any way participating in tourism in Greece, and that is a huge percentage of the population, speaks very, very good English. At its most basic, Greek salad contains tomatoes, onions, cucumbers, feta cheese, and olives, typically from Kalamata. And sometimes you will find funky additions like green peppers, which are quite common in the Cycladic islands like Santorini, which is very famous. You might find caper leaves. In Thessaloniki, I went to a fancy restaurant and I got served my Greek salad with something called sea fennel as well, which is a thing I'd never had before, and it's absolutely delicious. My recommendation is when you're ordering in Greece, always get a salad. It makes your meal more colorful, it makes it healthier, and if you're anything like me and you want to try the really traditional stuff, Greek food isn't necessarily that healthy. Now, I know there's a lot of emphasis put on veg and fish and stuff like that in the Mediterranean diet, but there's a lot of pastry, there's a lot of fried food, there's a lot of oil, not actually that healthy. Before we move on to our next meal, this sandwich shop called Guarantee, it's so loud here. This sandwich shop called Guarantee is absolutely spectacular. If you find yourself in Athens, and more specifically in the neighborhood of Kokaki, then definitely give it a go. Right, I have managed to find a relatively quiet street, so I hope you enjoyed this view because we're going to stick around for a while. And we're going to talk about our next two dishes, which are Souvlaki and gyros, or gyro, as some people pronounce it erroneously. Right, these are both absolute staples of Greek street food, but there are differences. Gyros is made from meat cooked on a vertical spit. It came to Greece during the 19th century after immigrants from Anatolia and the Middle East in general began preparing their version of kebab in the region. Over time, the dish took on a traditional Greek character, and that is why typically you will find pork or chicken gyros in Greece, whereas kebab is traditionally made with beef or lamb. That is because pork is not considered halal, and kebab is traditionally served in Muslim majority countries. As you can see here, gyros is typically served stuffed in a pita bread along with tomatoes, sliced onions, fried potatoes, and tzatziki. As for souvlaki, you'll often find it served in a similar manner when it comes to street food restaurants, but if you're in a traditional sit-down restaurant, you'll usually just get a skewer of meat, and this is similar to dishes known as shish kebab, or for Russian speakers, shashlik. And yeah, these are pretty much the same thing, and that is because they are all Ottoman dishes. I won't go on a long historical tangent, but most of the areas within Greece's present-day borders were at some point part of the Ottoman Empire. During my visit, Greece was actually celebrating 200 years since the Revolution of 1821. This revolution was followed by the Greek War of Independence from 1821 to 1829, which was fought to free Greece from 4 centuries of Ottoman occupation. As a result of it, Greece was recognized as an independent state under what is known as the London Protocol of February 1830. I just mentioned that gyros and souvlaki are often served with something called tzatziki, but I should probably explain what that is. It is a yogurt-based dip that contains grated cucumber, garlic, salt, olive oil, and herbs like dill or mint. Tzatziki can be served as a cold appetizer or a meze, or as a side dish with any main meal. Similarly, here's another dip you should try. It's called Tirokafteri, and it is usually described as a spicy cheese dip. It usually contains feta, hot peppers, olive oil, lemon juice or vinegar, and garlic. You can eat it with bread or wait till the hot dishes come out and eat it alongside them. Next up, we've got dolma, an entire family of rice-stuffed Ottoman dishes. The clip that I'm showing you here is actually dolma made by a Kurdish Iraqi lady, but this is just to illustrate how similar they are. Here in Greece, the word dolma or dolmades is used specifically to describe stuffed vine leaves, while the rest of the stuffed vegetables are called gemista. But without wanting to be controversial, they are pretty much the same thing. You use the same rice mixture to stuff all of them. Next up, we've got Saganaki, another family of dishes, this time prepared in a small frying pan. The best known is probably fried cheese Saganaki, but you can also often find shrimp or mussels. Next up, we've got Pastitsio, a layered dish made with ground meat and bechamel sauce, most closely resembling lasagna. And that is no accident. Many Greek dishes show Italian influence. Many parts of the country were under Venetian and Genoese rule from the 13th to the 18th century. Moussaka is a similar layered dish which contains aubergines and, once again, bechamel sauce. And then there's fava porridge, beans blended with oil and lemon. Sounds basic, but it's incredible. Next, there are Keftedes, which in their simplest form are basically just fried meatballs with some spices and sometimes breadcrumbs mixed in. If the name sounds familiar, it's probably because they're a lot like kofta. The word comes from Persian kufte, meaning pounded meat. I personally like these meatballs, but I love the kind stuffed with feta cheese because Gemista cheese. But if you are slowly getting sick of all the cheese and feta-based dishes, then don't worry, our next one doesn't contain any, because the next one is seafood. You can just head to a seafood market and pick out the exact fish you want and then have it cooked at a local restaurant. There are oyster bars, basically any seafood that you can think of, you can find in Greece. And my personal favorite is the octopus. I know it sounds a bit odd, but it's delicious, trust me. All right, we're about to move on to the drinks, but first let me talk you through two of my favorite sweet dishes here in Greece. Number one is Greek yogurt. Have you heard of it? Of course you have. It is probably the most famous variety of strained yogurt in the world, but that doesn't mean it's the only one. You can actually find strained yogurt all over the world. In the Middle East, you will find labne. In faraway Iceland, skyr. But Greece is definitely most famous for this product, and what can I say? They do it very well. Now, let's talk about my favorite sweet dish in Greece and what used to be one of the most popular sweet dishes in the entire Ottoman Empire. It is baklava, and it actually predates the Ottoman Empire, but it's unclear where it originated from. What is clear, however, is that it's absolutely delicious. It is basically a layered pastry dessert made with phyllo pastry filled with chopped nuts and sweetened with syrup or honey. I realize it looks incredibly complicated, but I actually had a go at making it myself once, and it's not that hard if you use store-bought pastry. It basically just requires a lot of time, but not that much effort. Okay, one final type of dessert, free dessert. In Greece, there's something called Kerasma, the free dessert or drink you get at the end of your meal. My favorite is the sticky orange cake you see here, but I also really like Mastiha, which is a liqueur seasoned with mastic, a pine-flavored tree resin also used in cosmetics. Retsina, a famous Greek white wine, is also made with resin, and its production dates back at least 2,000 years. The addition of resin is thought to originate from the practice of sealing wine amphorae with resin in ancient times. Our final two drinks are Greek spirits you'll find on every menu. Tsipouro was created by a group of 14th century monks on Mount Athos. One version of it was flavored with anise, and this eventually turned into ouzo. Tsipouro can also contain anise, but it's always made with grapes, while ouzo can be distilled with any neutral spirit. Honest thoughts on Tsipouro. Not very nice. It is a very strong 40% spirit, so drinking it on its own is a little challenging. Fine, I may not love Tsipouro, but I did enjoy all the other 24 items on this list. Have you tried any? Let me know, and see you next Friday when I bring out new videos. Bye!